So I'm sure that we've all heard the news that is going on here, right? About ICE and the situation that happened. Very unfortunate. But you see, right now we have two sides that are arguing with each other. One side is saying that it was self-defense and that, of course, the officer was afraid and had to act out of self-defense, right? But then we have the other side that's saying that he did not have to act out of self-defense, that he was being hostile and violent and did what he did for absolutely no reason. And we don't have to play the video. We've already seen the video. It's trending all over the internet. And not only that, but it's just really interesting how the news, especially CNN, Fox, NBC, ABC, all the major news broadcasters are all showing the video, the graphic video, where, before the news would never show anything like this. But now they're showing the footage. And I just want to, go through some of the reactions on this before I give my take on this. It's just such an unfortunate situation,
Of others that rallied across our region on Thursday, their message to the Trump administration was clear.
What brought me out here? What's going on in this country?
The news prompting many from across our region to take a stand.
It's more important than ever, we feel like, to be standing out here and saying we need ICE out of our communities.
From an afternoon protest in Saranac Lake to a candlelight vigil in Fairfax, Vermont.
It really felt very close to home, and it felt very indicative of what's happening to our country.
The other thing about this is that there's about to be protests probably going all over the country. So that's why I'm bringing this up, that if you haven't heard of this yet, which I'm sure most of you have, but I know that there's probably a few out there that just haven't yet or probably don't really pay attention to what's going on until it's just a super trend, which I believe that this is becoming because they're already doing protests in different states across the country. Let's go through some reactions. Jimmy Kimmel's reaction to this was really interesting.
What happened and what is happening, because if we don't, it's definitely going to happen again. And, there used to be a baseline of truth. We now have the full force of the White House and the commentators who have decided that their job is to support anything and everything their leader says and does, trying to convince us that a mom who just dropped her 6-year-old off at school was part of a left-wing terror effort.
The way Jimmy Kimmel and the president go after each other, I don't know if there's certain words I can't say, on the videos, but I just want to say, the way they go back and forth is so interesting to me because it just makes me wonder sometimes, how could you have so much bitterness towards each other? It almost seems like they want people to argue and fight. It's like, why can't these two men who are very successful, who have a large following on both sides, why can't they just come to an agreement on their differences? I don't get this. It almost seems like, I don't know if propaganda is the right word, but it just almost seems like there's some type of manipulation going on here. Where it's like, let's divide the country. The saying, divide and conquer?
That took place in Minnesota yesterday occurred as a result of a larger, sinister, left-wing movement.
These vehicle rammings are domestic acts of terrorism.
This was an act of domestic terrorism.
Who was she again? They don't even say her on Jimmy Kimmel, but yeah, her with the cowboy hat on. They were getting at her about that, and she's wearing other hats in other videos. I'm glad I'm not the only one that noticed this.
Vehicle rammings.
It's a little strange.
Are domestic acts of terrorism.
This was an act of domestic terrorism. These were, it appears to be, paid agitators.
This is a woman who was in severe crisis.
It is clear that she tried to use her vehicle as a weapon with a lunatic.
All right. So we get the point, right?
Very angry. He believes that the narrative coming out from the Department of Homeland Security is simply untrue. The Department of Homeland Security.
Weather that is in Minneapolis, they were attempting to push out their vehicle and a woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over.
Homeland Security Secretary.
It was an act of domestic terrorism. What happened was our ICE officers were out in an enforcement action. They got stuck in the snow because of the adverse weather that is in Minneapolis. They were attempting to push out their vehicle and a woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over.
I don't think that's the full truth. That's not the full truth.
The mayor of Minneapolis is also speaking out, calling that official line from federal authorities a lie.
They are already trying to spin this as an action of self-defense. Having seen the video of myself, I want to tell everybody directly, that is.
Let's go out to the scene now. CNN's Whitney Wild has been tracking this story. Whitney, what more are officials there saying?
Well, as you heard, it was a profanity-laced press conference. Based on their statement, it appears they believe that this shooting was completely justified. Obviously,
over with her car, and the guy defended himself when that happened. Next question.
The investigation is still ongoing.
I said next question.
Mr. Vice President, I mean, you presumably watched the video yourself. There's not the slightest doubt in your mind, having viewed it, that the victim, you still believe that she deliberately tried to ram him despite seeing this video.
Look, I don't know what is in a person's heart or in a person's head, and obviously we're not going to get the chance to ask this woman what was going on. What I am certain of is that she violated the law. What I'm certain of is that that officer had every reason to think that he was under very serious threat for injury or in fact, his life. What I'm certain of is that she accelerated in a way where she ran into the guy. I don't know what was in her heart and what was in her head, but I know that she violated the law, and I know that officer was acting in self-defense. It raises an interesting point, though. Look, if people want to say that we should have...
I think there's a lot of half-truths on both sides of these stories, which is very interesting. It seems like both are trying to twist the narrative a little bit.
A legitimate debate about, what was she really doing, right? Was she panicking when she drove into this officer, or was she actually trying to ram him? That's a reasonable conversation. What's not reasonable is for so many of you to plaster all over the media that this was an innocent woman and that the ICE agent committed murder, which is what many of you have said explicitly and some of you have said implicitly. Yeah.
This is a lesson, y'all, where choose your battles wisely. I think that, like I said, how you see a lot of these people arguing with the police or ICE or federal agents, whatever you want to call it, out here fighting and protesting and trying to fight these people who are trained. Why would you put yourself in these situations? Sometimes I think it's better just to stay home and involved in all of this. Getting in fights, getting in unnecessary fights, getting dragged on the ground. I mean, let's be honest. This is another point that I wanted to bring up here that I haven't really heard too many people talk about. But I also think that, especially when you have people of color that come from the neighborhoods, the hoods, not the suburbs. Not saying that area is a suburb, but just, what I'm saying. They don't come from privileged families. I think that they all know that when they see the police, there's two things you can do. You can either obey the law or you can run. But keep in mind, there could be a consequence of what could happen next if you decide to run. Especially if you're running towards a cop or federal agent, which might even be worse. So, like I said, man, I believe that they are twisting the story on both sides. I do not think that the cop had to pull out his gun and do what he did. I do not believe that he had to do that. I mean, come on, man. This is somewhat what we discussed here. What man hasn't had a woman try to run him over with her car before? Okay? Just because she's trying to run you over with her car doesn't mean that you have to do all that. We've all seen women act frantic and do things like this before. Let's just keep it real, And it's like when I've seen things like this, or I've even had friends of mine tell me of experiences that they went through like this, they all said the same thing, like, man, she was just crazy. I just got out the way. And she just drove off. That's all this cop had to do. But, he definitely used excessive force. I agree with that. But like I said, there's a flip side to this coin. She also drove at him and disobeyed the law. And at that point, she was breaking the law. And he could do whatever he wants to at that point. That's the whole point of what I'm trying to make here is decision making. And then some people say that they were blocking the agents from doing what they got to do. Look, these people are going to do what they got to do, and they have an order that's being sent out. If you're over here complaining and crying, Just note, there could be consequences. I used to know this girl that used to say she used to go out there and do all that and protest and be yelling and getting all in the police's face and all that. And I was like, and what happened at the end of all that? What did you gain from all that? As a matter of fact, you made other people rich and other people had to go to jail. Come on, people. It's time for us to start looking at the bigger picture here. Do y'all not see what's going on here? But I will say this. We need to observe that I think there's something bigger going on here that we need to pay attention to.
And I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get the out of Minneapolis.
This is why we have to be very careful of our decision making. Our decision making is very important here because, look, man, they said that she was interfering with what they were trying to do. And like I said, I'm not trying to take any sides here. I'm just looking at both sides and I'm just saying this is going to go further. It's not going to just stop right here. There's going to either have to be some kind of indictment. It's what I've been hearing some other people say. And most likely he'll probably get off, even though we know that it's not really justified. I do agree that it was excessive force. But from what I see here, it looks like two people overreacted. That's from what I see. But as far as the protesting goes and getting in the way of these people that are clearly carrying weapons and look like they're ready to use them, I think it's better that you just stay out of the way. That would probably be the better choice, the better decision. And especially for us as men, this is why we have to be careful with this. And I will say that I don't need to go back and play it where Vance had said something about the whole something about the leftists, or, you know, he tried to bring that whole political thing into it, but let's not get political here. We talk more about masculinity and self-improvement here. And for the most part, and I feel that this was definitely something that I feel that a woman should not have even have been involved in the first place. I mean, look at the car that she was driving. Clearly, this is a mother. Like, look at the car that she's driving. Clearly, this is a woman that has a family. So the fact to just overlook all of these things is just, man, like I could really like go further into this topic, but I don't think I will. There's so many things that could have been observed here that just, I don't know, man. It seems like everything just got really overlooked on both sides. Just her not recognizing the situation that these guys are they looked very anxious. For those of us that seen the video, they looked very anxious. They all had their hands like on their hip, like they were getting ready to grab that gun already. And she's acting frantic, and, you know, and she's driving the car all crazy. And it's just like, sometimes in certain situations, you got to learn to be calm. But, you know, this goes back to self-mastery, self-improvement, and mostly it's a masculine trait. This is why I did a previous video about women being in law enforcement. You know, it's a tricky subject. But, you know, because most women, I'm not saying all, but most women are not known to handle critical situations. It's just not really in their DNA or in their nature. They're not designed in their DNA genetics to be in uncertain, dangerous, critical situations. And this was definitely a situation that she shouldn't have been in. But like I said as well, I'm not taking the side of the agents either. I think that they over aggressively did what they did, and I don't think that it was really needed. They just didn't want to let her get away. That's all it was. It wasn't that they were really afraid or scared. They just didn't want to let her get away.